Trucker Dump for May 19th, 2014, episode 102. What's it like to be a trucker?
Welcome to Trucker Dump, where you'll get one driver's insights and sometimes humorous views of truck driving and the trucking industry, and pretty much anything else he feels like dumping on you. This podcast is brought to you by AboutTruckDriving.com. Resources to help you understand the world of truck driving through the use of stories and a pathetic attempt at humor.
Hey, truckers and truckerettes, it's Todd McCann. Sorry, it's been such a long time since I've podcasted. Well, that's just the way it is. I give up making excuses. First 2 weeks, I'm just lazy. Anytime else, it's been noise or heat or some other issue. And look at me, I'm sitting here making excuses again. So anyway, I've given up on this 2-week podcast thing that I was trying to do one every 2 weeks. That's never going to happen. I just need to face those facts. Sorry about the noise out there if you can hear that today. Windows down. It's hotter than heck outside. Lots of traffic going by. Anyway, this is the first time I'm going to wing this intro. Usually I script this thing all out. And this time I've got some bullet points here. I'm just going to try to go from that because I really do feel like I need to script out the main blog post because, I have to think through all those thoughts and make sure I'm not sounding like more of an idiot than I really am. And, that's fine for the blog post, but there's really no reason for me other than I stammer all over myself not to just wing these intros, when I'm just talking to you. But I got to tell you, it's hard to do because nobody's sitting here, I'm not talking to anybody. I know people are out there listening, but I'm looking at the back of a Willis Shaw truck right now. So, it's like I'm just talking to myself, which, believe it or not, I don't do a lot in this truck. I know a lot of truckers say they do that, but anyway. Anyway, this is going to be one long episode, and here's why. You guys know my JobShadow.com interview that I'm always bragging about? Well, I've decided to finally do something about that, and I'm actually going to have the interview on this podcast. Now, if you haven't heard of JobShadow.com, it's a really cool website. If you don't know what job shadowing is, it's like where you follow somebody around for a day and figure out what it's like to do their job. Well, most people just can't, like I can't just walk up to a pharmacist when I was interested in pharmacy and say, hey, can I follow you around for a day? I promise I won't steal any pills. But if you want to know about a job, but you don't have any way of shadowing somebody, well, this is a great way to do it. I went over, I found a thing on pharmacy, read it, and found out about their work hours and their schedule and what they like about their job, what kind of money they make, what kind of education they need, all that kind of stuff. I mean, they've got everything from truck drivers, obviously, to pharmacists, rocket scientists, police officers, firemen, just nurses, anything you could possibly think of. They got it over there. It's a pretty cool website, and I think a lot of the people like me actually write back a lot too and help people out. And I know I did. I've got a lot of comments over there. I've mentioned them before on here. I've had some long ones. I've never really had a chance to get to them. So I'm just dedicating this entire podcast to my JobShadow.com interview. I got a friend of mine, Alan, who is Alan Q. Bristol on Twitter. I got him to read the questions so it wouldn't sound like I'm asking myself questions, make me sound like I'm nuttier than I actually am. He's going to do that. And then following, we've got some of those comments I was talking about. Joseph asks about the minimum age to drive a truck. Scott has a bad back, and he has questions on both the driving part and the loading part, whether he'd be able to do it. Emily just wants to pat us truckers on the back, which I'm always cool with. We need that. Karrie asks if trucking companies allow people to job shadow their drivers. Billy puts in a caution to truckers. He is a trucker. He puts a caution in to people considering becoming truckers. And a guy named Denver, I assume it's a guy. Yeah, it's a guy. Pretty sure. He wants to know if there's jobs for truckers who don't want to be away from home all the time. And I'll also go back and in the feedback section, I'll point out some of the other comments from this jobshadow.com interview that I've already covered in past episodes. I won't go through them again because this one's going to be long enough as is. But I will mention where you can find those if you're interested in the comments and kind of what those comments were about. If you'd like to follow along with the written version, you can go to jobshadow.com and look for Interview with a Truck Driver 2, or just click on the link here in the show notes. So, now that I've freestyled through my first intro, let's get started with the interview. Take it away, Alan.
What do you do for a living?
I am a production relocation specialist. Okay, I'm an over-the-road, or OTR, truck driver. Gotta spice up the resume somehow, you know.
How would you describe what you do?
It's pretty simple, really. I drive a big rig to deliver all the cool stuff that you want and need. Like any job, sometimes it's fun, and sometimes it stinks worse than a freshly manured cornfield. Driving a truck is monotonous, yet it isn't. We drive, we fuel, we eat, we shower. Well, some of us do anyway. We sleep, we repeat. Yet there's also an adventurous aspect to it.
What does your work entail?
It involves a lot of time behind the wheel. Most over-the-road truckers work 70-hour weeks. Much of that time is spent driving, of course. It isn't as bad as it sounds, though. You'll have to trust my nearly 17 years of experience here. Working 70 hours as a trucker is not as hard as doing it at a factory. I know this from experience. If we're already under a load, we wake up, do our morning ritual, although it can be just as easily at night. We do a short pre-trip inspection, and then we hit the road. We may have to stop for fuel somewhere along the way. Once we get to our delivery location, we check in with receiving, back into a dock, and wait to be unloaded. Most over-the-road drivers rarely have to unload themselves. When finished, we get our bills signed and wait for our next load to pop up on our satellite system. When it comes up, we plan out our trip and head out to pick up the load. Rinse and repeat.
What's a typical work week like?
Well, that's the thing. There really isn't a typical work week for every truck driver. Our schedule is wonkier than Willie's Chocolate Factory. We might drive all day on Tuesday and drive the graveyard shift on Wednesday. You might be hammered down for 6 days and then sit for 36 hours. It's really a hurry up and wait kind of scenario.
How did you get started?
I got started because I wanted to become an architect. No, I'm not holding a funny little pipe right now. I wanted to go to college, but was told that the course load was too much to hold a job while I was in school. Who knew building a popsicle stick skyscraper was so time-consuming? Since I was working on the loading dock in an egg packing plant, I began to talk to truckers. My plan was for the evil overlord, that's the wife and ex-co-driver, and I to drive as a team for a couple of years, pay off her debt, and go to school. Almost 17 years later, I'm still driving. She managed to escape after 9 years and is back in school now. Well, she's kind of in and out of school.
What do you like about what you do?
In this economy, I love knowing that I could quit my job today and start with another carrier in a day or two. As long as you keep a good record, you'll never be without work. I love the aspect of not knowing what's coming next, too. I never know what town I'll be picking up in or delivering to. That's the adventurous aspect I spoke of earlier. This unsteady schedule is both a blessing and a curse, though. There's no chance of getting in a rut here, but there's also no chance of getting a normal schedule either. It does keep things interesting, though. Another cool thing is that most companies will let you take time off wherever you want, provided they have freight moving where you want to go. The evil overlord and I once asked for a load to Las Vegas where we met some relatives who flew out. When they hopped on the plane to return home, we loaded up on the truck. So in essence, we got paid to travel to and from our vacation spot. That's pretty nifty, I think. Perhaps the best thing about truck driving is being on the open road and the freedom that comes with it. No bland gray cubicle walls for us truckers. It's one of the few jobs I can think of where you have a boss, but no one's breathing down your neck all day. Most dispatchers are so busy, they don't really want to talk to you unless it's absolutely necessary. I've gone over a week without needing to talk to my boss. It's so sweet.
What do you dislike?
For me, the worst thing by far is being away from home so much. There's no chance to build real, live, face-to-face friendships, you miss a lot of family events, and it's nearly impossible to get involved in a church or your community. My trucking company has a 2 weeks out minimum requirement on the particular fleet that I'm on. Even though I want to go home every 2 weeks, I usually stay out 3 to 4 weeks to earn as much money as possible. I will point out that every company has different guidelines about how often you can go home. Just remember, the typical rule is, the more you're home, the less money you'll make. That's true about 95% of the time. Another thing I absolutely hate about the trucking industry is the waiting. Some customers are worse than others, but no one escapes from waiting in this industry. It's not uncommon for a trucker to sit in a dock for 3 to 4 hours before they're loaded. The longest I've sat is 12 hours. Needless to say, I was a bit grumpy that day. And usually you're not even paid for this lost time. Not only that, but if the customer requires you to be on the dock for loading or unloading, this lost dock time can go against the hours you can legally drive. So any way you slice it, you're getting punched in the wallet. And the regulations, dear God, the regulations. More on that in a bit.
How do you make money? How are you compensated?
Although loads can be paid by a percentage, that's of the revenue paid to the carrier, or a driver can make a salary, the majority of over-the-road drivers are paid by the mile. Unfortunately, most companies use an antiquated system to figure these miles. I'm just going to come out and say it. Truckers rarely get paid for every mile they run. This is one of the things that bugs the snot out of me. Typically, we get shorted about 10% on miles. So, if your run is 1,000 actual miles, you'll only be paid for about 900. Yeah, it stinks, but it's the nature of the beast. Or, as truckers like to say, that's truckin'. Nearly every carrier does this, so there's really no escaping it. They like to say that some trips actually pay more miles, but they've been sniffing too much whiteout. Of the thousands of trips I've run, I'd say only a handful of them paid more than the actual miles. And when it did, it certainly wasn't even 10% over. Next subject, please, before I blow a gasket.
How much money do truck drivers make?
That all depends on your experience. With 17 years under my butt, I've pretty much maxed out on my potential. I work for one of the highest paying trucking companies there is, and I was recently informed that I was in the top 4% for miles and wages earned. I made about $59,000 gross last year. The best I've done was in 2007 when I was in the top 1% and made $66,000. There are a few better paying driving jobs out there, but they're with companies that are so exclusive that in order to get hired, a driver has to die and you have to be related to that driver.
How much money do truck drivers make starting out?
Most driver recruiters will quote about $40,000 to $45,000 for a driver fresh out of driving school. I think that's about right. At least it was when I started in 1997. Sadly, driver pay really hasn't gone up much since then. There are some companies out there who will take advantage of your rookie status, so be on the lookout and shop around when you're looking for someone to drive for.
What education, schooling, or skills are needed to do this?
Most carriers require you to attend a truck driving school nowadays. There, you'll obtain a learner's permit, be taught the basics of how to drive, and eventually earn your CDL. That's a commercial driver's license. Once you're hired on by a trucking company, you'll be matched with a trainer. That's when your real training starts. The schools can last anywhere from 2 to 12 weeks. And by the way, those 2-week school graduates scare the crap out of me. Training once you're at your company will usually last anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks, depending on your progress. And by the way, you'll be paid a salary while you're in training. Now, if you have an Uncle Stan like me that owns a trucking company, it's my understanding that there's no rule saying he can't train you and stick you in a truck. But for most people, a real school is required nowadays. Not to mention, if good old Uncle Stan ever cans you, you're totally hosed without formal training.
What is most challenging about what you do?
Well, doing a blindside back, that's where you can't see out your driver's side window, with a 53-foot trailer in a crowded truck stop parking lot at night isn't much fun. And of course, there's the traffic and the horde of insane four-wheeler pilots out there. I think perhaps one of the most challenging things is the ever-increasing regulations and restrictions put on truckers. Here's just a few of them. Electronic logs give you no leeway to do your job when things don't go as planned, which happens a lot. Still, that's the way the industry is going. It's only a matter of time before everyone's got e-logs in their truck. Granted, if the hours of service rules were more flexible, e-logs wouldn't be as much of an issue. As of now, we drivers need some wiggle room, and electronic logs just aren't good wigglers. I pretty much loathe electronic logs and have written numerous blog posts about the cursed things. More and more states are adding idling restrictions now, too. Technically, it's illegal to idle your truck for more than a few minutes in many states. 20 degrees out? Illegal to idle. A scorching 95 degrees? Still illegal. Who cares how comfortable you are when you're trying to sleep? Luckily, the cops rarely enforce these laws. But what if they start? State revenues are low these days. Here's another one. The CSA, that's the Comprehensive Safety Analysis, is a new system that gives a driver a score based on their safety record. These points follow the driver. You get too many and a company can fire you. And that probably means another company won't want to hire you either. So I can hear you saying, well, just drive safe and this won't be an issue. Well, that's true. But sometimes drivers can get points for things out of their control. For example, a driver can get points for a burned out light. Oftentimes this happens when we're driving, so we have no possible way of knowing that our rear license plate light crapped out. Ooh, what a threat to safety that is. Not. Here's something even screwier. If a cop gives you a ticket, you can fight it. If you win, you can request the points be taken off your CSA score. That's cool. But if you get a warning instead of a ticket, well, there's no way to fight a warning. But you get just as many CSA points for the warning as you do for getting a ticket. How cool is that? Clearly they need to work some bugs out of this system. Hopefully they'll call their exterminator before it gets out of control. Okay, that's enough ranting. Someone get me a cool wash rag and a chill pill, would you?
What is most rewarding?
There really is a sense of accomplishment with trucking. You pick up a load, you deliver it, and someone gets the junk they want. So when I deliver a load of ramen noodles to a grocery warehouse, I'm doing my part to ensure that thousands of college students will survive another day.
What advice would you offer someone considering this career?
First, go in with a plan for your money. If you're used to fast food wages and you start making $40,000 per year, you'll probably go a little crazy with the spending. I know we did. And that's partly why I'm still out here almost 17 years later. Also, if you have a problem with your weight, well, driving a truck will likely only make things worse. The evil overlord and I didn't have weight issues when we started, but we both gained weight eventually. We did manage to lose it again while still out on the road, but it took a lot of self-discipline on her part. I just eat what's put in front of my face, so it wasn't that difficult for me, really. Many truckers don't have that kind of willpower. It's really easy to make bad food choices when you're constantly in a hurry.
How much time off do you get to take?
This is one of the really cool things about trucking. There is no standard. You get to find a company that fits what you're looking for. It could be 1 day off for every 7 on the road, 2 days off for every 10 on the road, out for 1 week and off for 1 week, home every weekend, home every night, etc. The possibilities really are astounding. Just remember what I said before. Typically, the more often you're home, the less money they're willing to pay you.
What is a common misconception people have about what you do?
That trucking is a fun adventure where you're going to get to see the world. While you will get to see a lot of the country, many of the things you want to see aren't on the beaten path. In other words, you'll have to plan to see them or you never will. And let's not forget, truck driving is still a job no matter how much fun you think it'll be. Another thing that bugs the crap out of me is how the media always makes us out to be drug-addled, fatigued truckers who have a crosshair hood ornament with your name on it. That just isn't true. A study of random drug screens shows that only 1.5% of drivers were under the influence of drugs. Only 0.1% were legally drunk. That's 0.1, not 1%. And need to remind you that truckers are considered under the influence at 0.04 levels, which is half of that allowed to automobile drivers at 0.08. Furthermore, when there is an accident involving a truck and a car, over 70% of the time it's the auto driver who's at fault. Not to mention, trucks are only involved with 7% of all wrecks. So, who's the dangerous drivers out there?
What are your goals and dreams for the future?
I would love to get out of trucking. 17 years is a long time to be away from home and a normal life. I really miss having relationships with real people. As of now, all my friends involve a screen and a keyboard. And now that the evil overlord isn't out here with me, it's even worse. I've had an exit strategy for a while, but something always seems to come up to thwart it. I'm either going to try to get into pharmacy school, or I may have another job option in the works. Gonna have to see how that pans out, though. You know, I've said it 100 times, and I'll say it again. I do like driving a truck. If I could find a truck driving job that would pay me $75,000 per year and allow me to be home every night, I'd keep on trucking. But I got a better chance of catching the tooth fairy and holding her for ransom than I do of finding anything close to that.
What else would you like people to know about your job?
I just like for people to go in with both eyes open. It takes a special kind of person to drive a truck for a living. If you're single or a married couple without kids in the house, maybe you're the ideal candidate. Maybe not if you want to be there for all your kids' events. Or maybe you should just do it short term to accomplish a certain goal. Who knows? Just look at it with a true perspective if you're considering truck driving as a career. Just find out as much about it as you can before you get into it. Lastly, I'd like to try to get rid of this stereotypical trucker that's running around in all of our minds. Heck, it still exists in mine, so I know it does in the general public's eye. Not all truckers are overweight, filthy, uneducated, perverted rednecks. While we certainly have our fair share of those guys out here, the majority of truckers are your average Joe. The difference is, they're doing a vital job that many people don't want. And lastly, I guess it'd be lastly number 2, please feel free to ask me any trucking-related questions that you can think of that might help you with this career choice. You can contact me through my website, which is abouttruckdriving.com, or you can email me at abouttruckdriving@gmail.com or at truckerdump@gmail.com. If you forget all that, you can contact me on Twitter, and I can give you all this information again. I'm at Todd McCann over there. That's 2 D's, 2 C's, and 2 N's.
Hey, yo, bud, where do you want this load of feedback?
Hey there. Welcome to the feedback section. Let's see what we got in store for us today. You know, first off, I want to mention that I've got a lot of comments from this jobshadow.com website, and I've already covered a lot of them. Here's just some of them. Back in Trucker Dump 88, Kristine asks, she's a woman and is asking about how women are treated in the industry, and she has some questions about teaming. We continue with Kristine in Trucker Dump 89, where we follow up with some more stuff. I talked to 2 women truckers and gave her some information about that and the struggles that they've gone through trying to find team members and stuff. A lot of kind of some sexual harassment stuff going on there, so that was interesting. And she also asked about rider and pet policies, which she didn't have any idea existed. Let's see, in Trucker Dump 93, Paul asks about whether a car accident he had when he was younger will affect him getting a driving job if he becomes a trucker. And there was some age questions in there, and I may or may not have botched that completely up and had to get it fixed later on by a correction. I'll discuss that here in a second. Also in Trucker Dump 93, Frank, he asked for company recommendations, and I go on to explain why I never give company recommendations. And Shelley wants to know if she can really learn to drive a truck in 15 days, and she also wants to know how we truckers communicate when we're out here on the road. Actually, in Trucker Dump 94, driver Chris Mack, that's driver Chris MC, that's how it's spelled on Twitter, he writes in and straightens me completely out because I totally botched up the age thing. So I was grateful for him there, and I'm sure he got a kick out of making me look like an idiot. Okay, in Trucker Dump 95, CJ asks whether a felony will keep his wife from trucking, and he follows up with a couple of cool websites that list trucking companies that will hire felons. So that's some good information there if you've been a naughty boy or a naughty girl, apparently, like his wife. Anyway, that's what we've covered so far. So let's get on with the 6 remaining. Yeah, there's 6 of them here. A couple of them are pretty long. Joseph's is pretty short. Joseph writes, "Hey, I was just wondering if any truck driving company would hire an 18-year-old. I think I read somewhere you must be 21 to cross state lines as a driver. But I just want to know if someone as young as me would realistically have a chance at a job. Thanks." Well, Joseph, thanks for writing in with your question. Sounds like you're one of those dudes with trucking in their blood, and man, does this industry need that. I don't have it, so I'm glad you've got it. And here's where I gave him a whole bunch of really bad information about age limits, and Chris wrote me in and corrected it, so I will skip all of that. Anyway, I go on to tell him I did apologize to him for giving him a bunch of wrong information. And I said, anyway, your assessment is correct. You have to be 21 to cross state lines. The minimum age to get a CDL is 18, and you'll have to find a trucking company that's willing to hire you. Many of them can't or they won't for insurance reasons. For instance, even though the law says 21-year-olds can cross state lines, my employer won't even consider hiring a driver unless they're 23. You know, hey, maybe that's where I got my bad information in the first place, because I was convinced you had to be 23 to cross state lines. Okay, well, anyway, sorry for the wrong information earlier. I'm really quite embarrassed of it, but best of luck. And I hope that helps you, Joseph, and I hope the trucking mojo stays with you until you're old enough to hit the road. Good luck, and holler back if I can help with anything else. And you know, Joseph is really young. He wrote me back and said, "Hey, Todd, thanks a lot for the update. Don't worry, you have not caused me any stress. I'm still 16, so I have a long road ahead of me." Man, 16 and already interested in driving a truck. That's the kind of guys we need out here, because like I said, I sure ain't one of them. Okay, next up we got a long one, but it addresses a good topic. Scott writes, "Hey Todd, I'm glad I stumbled upon this page. I didn't read every question and answer here, so I hope my question wasn't addressed already, but here goes. I'm soon to be 53 years old with a lifetime in construction that has screwed up my back pretty good. I'm in a position now where I have no choice but to look for something else. Driving a car or pickup is a non-issue for me as far as my back problems go. So, it occurred to me that driving a truck would be an option. Doing a little lifting every now and then is okay, but unloading an 18-wheeler is out of the question. I've been told that most truckers don't have to do that, but I have witnessed firsthand drivers helping in the unloading of a truck. Any insight on this would be helpful. I don't want to spend a ton of money learning how to do a job that I won't be able to do." Well, Scott, I can't believe you didn't read that whole article. It's not like I'm long-winded or anything. Actually, that's okay. I totally understand. I did go a bit long. I just figured I'd answer as many questions as I could so the readers wouldn't go away clueless. So let's get on with your questions. The bad back. Ah, yeah, the bad back. This concerns me a bit. Back problems are one of the biggest health problems for truckers. I realize that you can drive a car or a pickup without any issues, but is that car more comfortable to drive than a big rig? Undoubtedly. Are you driving your personal vehicle up to 11 hours per day, nearly every day? Very doubtedly. I'm pretty sure that's not a word. All big rigs nowadays have air ride seats, which is just like it sounds. It's basically a seat with air shocks. It's also highly adjustable. It works pretty well, but there are still a lot of roads that beat the living snot out of you. I'm lucky enough to not have persistent back problems. That's mainly because I consciously try to have good posture. I move the back of the seat to nearly vertical, so I'm forced to sit up straight. Yet I still find myself slumping. Therefore, I still sometimes find myself with a sore back after 11 hours of bronco bucking roads. The beds don't help either. They aren't slabs of concrete, but they aren't pillow-top mattresses either, although you can buy those for approximately $200. As for loading or unloading, I addressed this issue with Kristine way back in the comments section, so you can look up her reply for that. Or you can go back and listen to the comments section of Trucker Dump 88. Okay, go ahead. I'll wait. Pretty good, huh? Hey man, I'm glad you're back. So you can see that finding a good trucking company is a big key to making sure you don't load or unload very often. I will say that you're more likely to have to unload with a small carrier than you will at one of the larger companies. Most large carriers want you using your available hours to drive, not unload freight. This isn't always the case, but it's a good rule of thumb. Another thing is that many carriers nowadays are doing more than just a DOT physical during orientation. After they decide they want to look at you, you'll go to orientation at a city they specify. At some point, you may be asked to do certain fitness tests, such as 1. Lift a 20 or 30 pound box from the ground to a high shelf a few times. 2. Carry that same box 53 feet and back a few times. That's the length of a trailer. 3. Step up onto a box and back down again. And 4. Do a push and pull force test against a wall. Stuff like that. The evil overlord, that's the wife and ex-co-driver, managed these tests without much problem. She is a wimp, she doesn't have a bad back either. In the end, I really don't know what to tell you because I don't know how bad your back is. The only way I know to test your back is to find a trucker that will let you ride along with him for a while. Just make sure they have an air ride passenger seat. Some don't. Riding in the passenger seat will give you the same bouncy you're going to get while driving. I realize finding someone to ride along with won't be easy, but I don't know how else you'll know unless you do it. Maybe you should start with taking a long multiple-day trip in your car or pickup truck. Just keep in mind you need to keep driving for 11 hours before you stop for the night. Short breaks are allowed, but there are a lot of loads out here that don't have a lot of extra time for you to stop and stretch your back every hour or two. Yeah, seriously. I don't know if this helped you or not, but feel free to write back if you have any more questions. And I had a follow-up to him on this. It was kind of interesting. I wrote him back and said, "Hey Scott, I got some follow-up for you." As is typical, it comes in story form. I got to a delivery the other day and I found out they didn't have a trailer high dock. Usually, that's not a good sign. Sure enough, I needed to tailgate the product. That's bring all the cargo to the rear of the trailer for them to grab it with their forklift. They used the forklift to put a manual pallet jack up in the trailer. Now, I'm not a fat guy and I do work out a bit, but I'm, shall we say, less than strong and fit. Each pallet weighed 2,200 pounds, and it took my full strength to pull each pallet to the rear, spin it around, and drop it. 20 pallets later, my thighs were burning, and I was winded to say the least. I was thinking of you and Kristine, that's the other commenter, the whole time. After I was done, I asked the guy what happened when a fat trucker, a woman, or an injured or disabled driver couldn't do the job. He said it had happened numerous times, and one woman had even cried. There's no crying in trucking. He said the employees weren't allowed in the back of the trucks, that's probably for insurance reasons, so the drivers had to call out for hired help to get the job done. Like one of those local temp employment agencies. So there's good news and there's bad news. The bad news is that in this situation, a person might be delayed if they can't do the job. God knows how long it took the laborers to get there. The good news is that at least there's an option for truckers who may not be in the best of shape. Granted, that option will probably involve you forking over some of your own money. But, like I said, these situations rarely happen if you go with one of the larger trucking companies. And he writes, "Thanks, Todd. I've been trying to get a realistic idea of what to expect as a truck driver, and you've done an outstanding job of painting what seems to be a realistic picture of the occupation." All right, who's next in the trucker feedback bag? Let's see, Karrie. Wow, that's like the shortest question ever. Karrie writes, "Do trucking companies ever allow a person to job shadow?" Well, Karrie, I've never heard of a trucking company allowing someone to job shadow, but there is something that's basically the same thing. Most trucking companies have something called a rider policy. What this does is allow a non-driver to ride along with the trucker. These rider policies vary from company to company. There's 3 main issues. 1, who can ride along? Some companies will allow anyone the trucker wants to take. Others have restrictions, such as the person must be related to the trucker. Some have age restrictions too. That's usually anyone above 12 is okay. Or 12 and above. Can't remember. It's right around there, 12 somewhere. The second thing is how long can you ride along? Again, this varies. Some companies will limit how long you can stay out with the trucker. It might be 30, 60, or 90 days. Others will let you stay out infinitely. I know lots of truckers who bring their spouses along year-round. And the third thing, when can you ride along? Usually this restriction is for kids, but not always. Some companies don't want a passenger along when there's a potential for snowy or icy roads, so they constrict it to the summertime months. So you see, Karrie, it is possible to get a really good idea of what truck driving is like before you pursue the career. Nothing will prepare you for trucking more than being on the road 24/7 for 2 to 3 weeks at a time. The problem is you have to know someone who drives a truck in order to be a rider. Now, if you were a male, it probably wouldn't be all that hard to find a trucker willing to take you, but being a female presents other problems. First of all, any male trucker who has a lady aboard will probably make a pass at her. That's just the facts. If you don't believe me, check out the back and forth I had with Kristine earlier in the comments section. That was also in Trucker Dump 88 in the comments section if you want to listen to that on the podcast. And you know, finding a lady solo driver that's willing to take passengers won't likely be easy either. Most lady drivers team with their husbands or another lady. So there's your predicament. If you know a driver you can trust, ask them to take you along. If not, you might try finding a local trucking company in your area and dropping in and asking them if they might be willing to help you or give you some suggestions. And one last thing, if you do find someone to tag along with, you'll likely have to pay the rider fee, which is usually about $20 or $25 per month. Now this is a month-by-month fee, so if you decide to go out over the end of, say, August to the first weekend of September, that would be 2 months' fees because it covers 2 months. These fees are for insurance, and you'll also have to fill out some paperwork for the trucking company. Becoming a rider isn't a hard process, and the trucking company or the driver will walk you right through it. I hope this helps, and if you have any further questions, feel free to shout it out. Good luck, Karrie. Next up, Billy says, first off, a big word of warning, all caps. An investment into a truck driving school or under a servitude contract for free school by a company has risk. Health, that CDL requires a medical certificate to drive. If you develop health problems, it's very possible your career as a driver will be short-lived. Another is an accident can put you out of a driver's seat in a job faster than a pilot can eject out of an F-16. A few tickets in your personal car or a motorcycle can also find you unemployed, and in some states you'll need to retake a driving test for a car all over again, as a CDL is not the same as a regular operator's license. Driving a truck through a minefield of idiot four-wheelers, weather conditions, and crime also increase the risk of having a wife apply for Social Security death benefits as well. After 12 years, I still have a clean CDL, but keeping it clean for low wages and the dangers isn't worth it. It's back to the factory for me. Well, Billy, thanks for piping in with your views of trucking. Now, I hope I didn't glamorize the life of a trucker. I certainly wasn't trying to. But if I did, it's nice to have someone to balance me out here. You make a bunch of good points. While there are inherent risks in nearly every career change, at least the costs of trucking school are fairly cheap compared to 4 years of college. The possibility of a short career due to health issues are real too, especially since the health guidelines are getting stricter all the time. But hey, maybe that'll motivate all them fat truckers to get their butts in shape. Accidents and too many tickets can certainly get you canned, although it should be pointed out that the only type of accident that will probably get you an immediate axing would be one involving a fatality. I once had a dispatcher told me he had to fire a driver after his third rollover. Crikey. But again, this will likely get worse with the introduction of the new CSA point system. And don't get me started on that. Well, Billy, after spelling it out like you did, I guess I can see why you're going back to the factory life. Good luck with whatever you do. I'm just sad to see a good driver throw in the towel. Alright, 2 more quickies and we can wrap this puppy up. Finally, you're saying. Yes, I know. Denver writes, I love to drive. Cars, trucks, cycles, bicycles. I have a college education in the medical field and x-ray, but unfortunately I'm very burnt out of the profession. I enjoy the road and my own company, but my biggest concern or worry is being away from my wife and child. I'd love to be home every night, but could surely handle a couple nights away from home. Money is not too big of a concern. We are frugal and the wife has a good job. Are there any jobs out there for someone like me? I'd attend a 6-month community college for the CDL. I currently have a bachelor's degree in general studies and x-ray. You've provided very good information here. Any advice? Thank you much. Well, Denver, to answer your question, yes, there are plenty of jobs out here for guys like you who don't want to be gone a lot. But there are 3 catches. Number 1, it's doubtful you'll make as much money as an over-the-road driver. But that's a good thing you already said that wasn't a huge issue for you. 2, there are driving jobs that will allow you to be home most nights, but quite often those nights aren't actually nights. Sometimes those jobs will have you driving overnight and getting back home by morning. Now, if that doesn't work for you, just make sure you find a job with real day hours. And the 3rd catch, in my experience, it will be easier to find one of these jobs if you live near a big city or are willing to drive to one every day. There just isn't much daily freight running out of Podunk, Kansas. You know, my general advice to you is to write out a list of job requirements that are important to you, and then don't hang up the phone with each company until you have answers to all of them. Just remember this, there is no such thing as a perfect job. You may have to make sacrifices in one area to get something in another. I hope that helps, Denver. Good luck if you decide to switch careers, and let me know if I can help with anything else. And lastly, this'll make you feel good. Emily, who is from her picture, looks like a fairly young person. She writes, driving a huge vehicle is not an easy job. Truck drivers should be tough and strong to be able to control the huge vehicle into place, and not to mention the dangers while off the road. I salute every truck driver for their dedication at work. Thanks for this interview. It's such a good read. Well, Emily, thanks for your kind words. You know, it's nice to see someone so young who understands the importance of the necessary but underappreciated jobs in this world. It's not just us truckers, though. Remember that every time you dive your face into a buttered corn on the cob, there's a farmer who grew it. And every time you see someone cleaning a public toilet, just think how nasty the world would be without those good folks. Ugh. Thanks, Emily, for stopping by and leaving your thoughts. I really appreciate it. And you know, that's a good word for all of us. Emily's young, and she already knows to appreciate underappreciated jobs. How are we doing as truckers? I know we feel sorry for ourselves a lot, but how about, you know, those porters that are cleaning God knows what out of the shower drains at the truck stops and unclogging toilets for all these trucker dumps? You know, like when I'm on a 2-lane road, you know, sometimes you get behind a tractor and it gets frustrating, and you just have to look at yourself in your, you know, in your little mirror and think, God, I'm such an idiot. You know, this guy just providing all the food that I'm eating, and I'm whining because it's going to take me, you know, 5 minutes to get around him. You know, maybe we just need to relax. Go do it. You know, maybe we just need to relax a little bit. So, word to the wise from a very young lady. Thanks, Emily. And that will about do it for this week. Finally. You know, I'm really waiting on my first audio comment. Who is going to be the first person? You don't have to have a microphone. You don't have to be a professional speaker, as you can tell, because I do this podcast and I'm not a professional speaker. Just try this. Get out your phone. Open up the voice memo app, or whatever they call it. It's voice memo on iOS, on Apple phones. God knows what it's called on Android. Just hit the record button, and I guarantee you there's a way to share it in there. Once you're done, just hit the share button and send it to truckerdump@gmail.com. Who's going to be the first one? I keep asking. Nobody's ever going to come through for me. What's going on? Please, somebody, please. Gonna make me cry. Okay, start the music. Ooh, I nearly forgot. I do have an audio comment. Well, sort of. It's an audio clip, at least. Hey, my friend Eric wants you guys to know about a new project he started, so here's what's going on with him.
Hey drivers, my name is Eric Blacker. I'm starting a little project over on Facebook called Trucker's Paradigm. I'm gathering together stories, real stories about you and I. Now, I know truckers. I know how you all hold court in the truck stops and drivers' lounges, telling your tall tales to whoever will give you an ear. I'm looking for those stories, about anything, but keep the embellishments to a minimum, okay? Whether you're a noob still in driving school or a grizzled veteran that slept in a hammock slung under the trailer when you first started, I want to hear your stories, in your own words. Explicit language is okay, just keep it pertinent to the story. Get help writing if you need it. I'm willing to help as well. Submit audio, submit video, but let the world know what your story is. My goal for the project is to paint a clearer picture to the public about who we really are out here. For so long we've been dehumanized, relegated to the sidelines. I know who we are. I've met thousands of you. And I know we're more than what the public image portrays. If I can get some traction on Facebook, I'll start a podcast. That works. I'll get a web page started for those who don't do the Facebook. In the meantime, help me get this off the ground, will you? Head over to facebook.com/truckersparadigm. That's TruckersParadigm. Or you can email me at truckersparadigm@gmail.com. Or hit me up on Twitter. Now this is different. This is at truckerparadigm. There's no S between trucker and paradigm because of the character limit. So it's TruckerParadigm. Hoping to hear your story, driver. Catch you on the flip side.
Well, that sounds pretty freaking cool. Truckers, we know you got stories. Come on, give them to him. It's a guy starting a new website. I know how hard that can be. Give him a hand. Head over to the Facebook. I got all those links in the show notes there for you. Or go back and listen to them again. Just write them down. Whatever you want to do. Just get over there and leave some stories. The man needs some help. And I really hope that podcast gets going too, because I think Eric would make a great podcaster. So, let's see. Well, I got my audio comments, so I'm a happy camper. So now, I guess I don't have to cry on my way out to the music. So, what'd you think of the interview? Did I cover all my bases? If you've got comments or suggestions for it, you can go directly to jobshadow.com, search for Interview with the Truck Driver 2, where there's a link in the show notes, or you can go to abouttruckdriving.com and search for TD102. Leave your comments there. You can also just shoot me an email at truckerdump@gmail.com or contact me through Twitter, where I'm at Todd McCann. That's 2 D's, 2 C's, and 2 N's. Say, have you left a review, a rating, and subscribed to the podcast yet? Aren't you sick of me nagging you by now? You should be. Anyway, thanks for listening. So until next time, drive safe, stay out of my way.